consensus amongst brokers here in South Africa is that with jitteriness prevailing around emerging markets and frontier markets, now possibly a time to be looking at opportunities, and that it's a risk-on approach that investors should start approaching. So where we've seen a substantial reduction in foreign investor participation in Kenya, with that slight uptick coming to the fore on Friday only, do you hold the same view when it comes to the Kenyan market?
It's a very interesting question, and clearly I think everyone's referring to the North African markets where Egypt fell 21% since the beginning of the year. That might be a compelling entry point if the political dispensation goes in the direction I expect it to go. Tunis has bounced about 3.5%. We've come down about 4% since we peaked Jan 6. I'm still looking and waiting. I'm expecting some strong full year results, and I'm looking to pick my points. I'm not looking at it on a macro basis, but I'm looking for those opportunities where I think stocks are being unfairly beaten up and have a chance to bounce big into the full year results.
Where are you seeing the opportunity? Let's get a bit specific here, because one would assume that it's those liquid counters that have been punished, the likes of Barclays, KCB, Equity, that would be getting attention most specifically from the foreign investor. As a local investor who has more of an in-depth understanding of the counters and the context within which they operate, what are some of the not so obvious counters to be looking at this stage?
Well, I mean, I'm very keen in the banking stocks on KCB, and that's trading on a forward price earnings ratio of about 7.9, and I think the catalyst for the repricing of that stock will be the release of the full year results. I also like the tea stocks. I know we've had a little bit of a lurch because of what's happening in Egypt in the last couple of weeks. Egypt is one of the biggest buyers at the tea auction. But I'm pretty bullish about tea prices. I think they belong in the breakfast commodity index. They're going a lot higher. Sri Lanka's flooded as per the news. So I'm looking in that corner as well. And then even KPLC looks to me pretty compelling at the current price earnings ratio, if I can get it a little bit lower down.
Let's take a look at the insurance players for a second, because this is a sector that investors seem to have been steering clear from. We've got Kenya Re at around about that 11 shilling mark. It's posted a negative 10% return roughly for the past year, and it's about 3% of its 52-week low of 10 shillings 80 from December. I mean, what's your view on insurance players as a whole, the likes of a Kenya Re, Jubilee and Pan Africa as well?
It's a very interesting group of shares. Kenya Re trades on about a price earnings of 5.5, Jubilee on about 11, and Pan Africa at 20. So the case for Kenya Re is really that it's a cheap stock versus the earnings, but there's very little transparency on their underwriting skills, and I just don't have a clear idea as to what types of risks they're underwriting. The price on the chart doesn't make me excited. It looks as if it's going to trade through its 52-week low, which is just a little bit below. So I'm rather sidelined on that one. Jubilee is a completely different prospect, very well run, price earnings ratio of about 11, lot of fat on the balance sheet, Alishia. They keep everything at its cost price. They only book the profit on a sale. So you've got a lot of fat there which shareholders can look at, and they're looking much more expansive across the regional space. Pan Africa on a price earnings of 20 looks way too rich. It's very thinly traded, and it gets moved around on very little volume. I'm sidelined on that one.
Aly Khan, the age-old problem has been getting these companies to secure earnings from their core business, as opposed to securing bulk via investment income. What's your rating on the strides that are being made in that regard, where you've just touched on Jubilee now venturing into the regional market as opposed to staying just at home base?
The insurance business in the local Kenyan market does not make economic sense. These insurance companies write business on a net loss basis, looking to make profits via the investment income. So when you look at the actuarial dynamics of these underlying businesses in the local market, I'm not convinced that that the actuarial case is as strong as it should be. Jubilee is interesting because they've written risk at higher levels, and eventually there'll come a time when people will look at the ability to pay more than the actual premium they're paying. I think for these companies like Jubilee, it's a very exciting time to go regional. I think there are enormous opportunities in these regional markets, things like political risk, as we can see in Egypt, must be an enormous market that's not being tapped. And I think Jubilee, of all those three, have the best chance to actually conquer some of this regional space.
And of course, one would assume the right time to be doing so before we've got this, this playing field getting a little bit more competitive. We've heard that CIC, an insurance player, is looking to be listed on the NSE come next year. I mean, what are you making of that possibility and its, what it's bringing to the table? Because it says that it's preparing to extend its reach, and it's on target, or its target is to be the third largest insurance group in terms of customer numbers. Moving forward?
Well, I think that, they're well embedded in what I would call is the cooperative, the SACCO movement. They pretty much, CIC, have a lock on those accounts. And I think, they have a very strong opportunity. This is the moment to be well capitalized, to write your price, to stand back and say, look, I will pay the claim in the case the claim is made. And people are going to go for that kind of selling point. And I think that's what CIC is gunning for. They've raised enough capital. I think they're well managed. They've got a strong ecosystem of businesses to plug into. I would be bullish. I would look at Jubilee and look at something like CIC.